Hey guys, welcome. My name is Elish and I'm going to teach you how to use Riverpod in this tutorial. So first, let's start by understanding the workflow of Riverpod. Riverpod is a state management using Flutter. You already know that. We are going to have to define a state and we are going to define API services first of all. These are the two things that we define, and then we pass these two things to the here, and then we pass the state to the notifier here. Then we call the services from the notifier like this, and that's how we set up our Riverpod workflow. So now this notifier is also a controller which controls the screen like this. So its notifier is a controller that controls the state in the screen. And with Riverpod, you can easily control multiple screens like this using the same notifier provider. I'm not going to use some difficult terms here. Let's just say that it's going to be very simple to manage state using this notifier that handles this state, and it can be passed to any screen easily. If you are comfortable using Provider Packages, then I can tell you that it's a lot simpler than Provider. Riverpod is a little bit challenging to understand at first, but once you do, you are going to leave Provider for good, because Provider requires a lot of setup, whereas Riverpod provides generators, code generators, which makes things a lot easier for us. So we define a state using code generators, we define API services with code generators, and we define notifiers with code generators as well. And we are going to see just that. So now let's first define our state, and the way we define our state is by first identifying is whether it's a asynchronous state that we want to manage or a synchronous state. Asynchronous state, as the name suggests, is the data that comes from the API or from the asynchronous processes, and the synchronous data is simply local data that we play around with. We are going to see both of them in action, and both of them have different way of how they work. So let's look into how we can define state in Riverpod. Let's go to the code. So the first thing we want to do is we want to install packages. So let's type in freezed pub dev. Freezed is a code generator. We define a model and it's going to generate everything that we need for that model. So it makes things a lot easier. We'll see this in action obviously. So we'll just scroll down, and we are going to go to this install section, and we are going to copy all of this here for the Flutter project, right? Dependency. We're going to copy that. We're going to create a new file and paste it here. So I'm just going to align them together so that it's easier for us. So let's just align them that way and freeze the annotations this way so that it's all in one line right here. Let's just put this down there. As you can see, it's one line. Let's cut that, let's paste it and install it all at once. So let's clear that. So now there is one more thing we want to do. We want to go back to our pubdev package documentation and scroll down and add this line as well, so that it'll ignore the linter. So let's copy that and let's go to analyze option YML. As you can see, I've already added that here. You have to add it on the same line as linter, as you can see. So linter and analyzer has to be in the same line, and then indent the error one with one tab, and then the invalid annotation target with another tab. So this is how you have to indent. Make sure the indentation are correct. So let's save that and let's close it. We are also going to go to our pubdev YAML and check all of these packages. Yeah, they have been correctly installed. Let's go to Riverpod now. Riverpod. Let's go to docs directly from here, and here we are going to go to the get started section, and then we are going to get all of these packages that it recommends us. For the Flutter, we want to use generators. Makes things a lot easier. So let's create a new file again and let's paste that, and we're going to install all of these. I'm going to skip build runner because we did that when we did the freezed setup. As you can see, build runner is already here. So let's cut that and make sure the spacings are right. cut that and let's paste it here so that we have all the packages that we need. Now I'm going to close this file. Let's go to pubspec YAML file and let's check everything. Yeah, everything. So all the packages have been installed. Now that we have installed all the packages, there's one more thing we want to do is we want to add, we copied this, right? So we copied this, we want to scroll down and we want to get this as well so that we can add it to our linter. So let's go to our analysis options YAML file and let's add that rule over here. So as you can see, analyzer is already there, so we are just going to copy that and paste it here like this. So now we have analyzer, errors and plugins. We can also put it down here like this so that it's organized, and let's see if there's anything remaining. Now that's it. We are not going to look into any more than this. So for now we have installed all the packages and we have set up the linter as well. So now that we have installed all the packages, let's create the folder structure. Now if we go back to our diagram, we did say that we want to define state. We want to include it in our notifier, and notifier is going to call our API services, and then we have screens here as well. So let's do that. Let's create folder structure for them. So we are going to create a new folder. We'll call it core. Inside the core we are going to actually, let's create the top two folders first. So there's core and there is the UI. Core is where all of our logic will go. UI will be all of our views without the logics. So let's create a new file inside, new folder inside core called models. These will be our state and the models that we are going to use in this project. We'll create another folder called services, and then we are going to create another folder and we'll name it screen controllers. So here in the UI, now we are going to create a new folder. We are going to create screens. So these will be our views, right? And then there will be another folder called widgets, which will be broken down widgets of the screens. So that should be it for the folder structure. As we can see, we have a place to define our state, and then we have a place where we can call our notifiers. This is where it's going to have our notifier, and notifier is also a controller, and the API services will be placed here. And then we have the screens, the UI part, and to make this file smaller, we'll break it down into different components and put it here into smaller widgets. So that's all about the folder structure. As you can see, this app is running here. This is a very basic app that you get with the newly created Flutter project. It's an incremental app. As you see that if I press plus, it's just going to increase. That's all that it does, and that is being done by this home screen here. I'm going to delete this later on, but for now I'm just going to leave it as is. So we are going to, let's go back to our file here, to our diagram I mean, and now what we are going to do is we are going to define our state. Like I previously mentioned, we have asynchronous and synchronous state in our Riverpod, which is controlled by our notifier. So let's just go and let's create a model for our app, and we are going to create a very simple to-do list. So let's just create a new file and we are going to name our model to-do list .dart. Let's do model.dart, and let's create a class, and we are going to call it to-do list, and the class will have a constructor const factory to-do list, and we are going to have a list required, a list of to do, and it's going to be to do's. Let's copy that and let's paste it here, and let's just rename that to do so that it's available here. We have to press comma here instead of semicolon, and we also have to put the semicolon there. Now let's save that, and we are going to have to use freezed. So how we are going to use freeze is by adding a constructor or decorator freezed here like so, and we have to extend it with underscore dollar, to-do list, and this is coming from the generated file. For now we just have to type it out. Let's do the same thing, and we also have to return, we also have to equal it to this to-do list, like so. This is the syntax. This data we are going to get from the generator file, and we are going to do the same thing here. Let's copy that, freezed with underscore $to-do, and then we are going to equals this to underscore to-do. So as you can see, we have to actually change this to string, and the to-do will have a title. Let's just do that, title, and let's save that. Now we have to import the freezed annotations, and this is the most important part. So we have to type part, and we have to give it the same name as this file. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to add freezed here to give the generated file a name. So we always remember this. This is how the generator is going to know where to look to generate the class for the given section, right? So we are just going to run .run build runner build -d. -d is going to delete all conflicting files, so always use -d. This is going to make things a lot easier. Sometimes we update our model and then it does not get override sometimes. That's the reason we use -d, but using this all the time is not a problem, so always use -d. Now that we have created our to-do list model, it's complaining about something. Let's see what it is complaining about. Missing concrete implementation of to-do list. Yeah, there's one more thing to remember here. So it's asking us to create our one missing override, and that is this. We can do this as well, but let's just remove that and let's make it a sealed class, so that we can skip typing out all the overrides. Because in production app, we know that we are going to have a lot of properties here, isn't it? So that's the reason we are going to create it as a sealed class, and the rest freezed is going to handle that for us. So let's again run .run build runner build. If we do that again, as you can see, the error message is gone, and now we can use this in our notifiers. So that's all. We have created our model. Now that we have created our to-do list model, this is going to be our state. So we are going to create notifier inside the screen controllers folder. So let's create a new file and call it to-do list.notifier.dart. We're going to call it a class to-do list notifier. Now, since we are using Riverpod to manage state, we are going to add a decorator, Riverpod. The autocomplete is not working, so I'll manually import it. So I'm going to write import package. It's going to be Riverpod annotations. Yeah, it's over here, Riverpod annotations. And as we are writing this, we also have to extend it with $$ and to-do list notifier. That's already there. Okay, so now I think you have noticed that as soon as we start writing $, we have to write part to indicate that we have to generate class for this file. So let's just do that, and to-do list, we're going to give it the same file name, notifier.g.dart this time, right? With g indicating that it's a generated file. So let's save that. Here now we're going to create an override function, override, and we are going to give it a name build, and we are going to return null. So this is the basic syntax of defining a notifier that manages our state for the screen. So this is notifier, and this notifier is this notifier, and this is going to manage the screen state, and this is also called a controller. Now we are going to put the state in the notifier. So the way we do that is by giving it a return type of to-do list. This is this exact thing that we created here. So let's save that, and we are going to return obviously to-do list, to-dos, and for this instance we're going to give a empty array. Let's save that. Now we always have to run build runner. That's why there is this command called watch, right? Build runner watch. I think there is this command called build runner watch, If you just keep that running, it will automatically rebuild, but I prefer it to do manually, so I'm just gonna do it manually. So I think that should be it. I'm just gonna organize the import. So let's build it, and when it builds, I'm just gonna go back. So what we did so far is we defined a state, we created a notifier, and now we are going to create a screen, and then we are going to use the notifier in it. But first, let's complete the notifier's logic. So what are we going to do with our to-do list is that we are going to first void add, right? And add, we are going to add string, let's say title, and then we are going to delete, let's say remove. I'm not going to do edit for now. I'm just going to write add and remove. Adding the complete functionality is not the purpose of this tutorial anyways, right? So so we have created our state, and we also can do this now. So when we want to add, what we want to do is we want to create final new to do is to do, and title is title, right? Title is title, and so there's the new to do, and we are going to update this state. And the way we do it is by calling state. After running the generator function, build runner function, state will become available here. As you can see, state here is a to-do list, and we are going to set it to state.copyWidth, and the reason we have copyWidth is because of this. Now because of generators, so we can have copyWidth with everything easily available using these generators. So state copyWidth, and we are going to do to-do list. Now we are again going to, since it's add function, we are going to simply do state.todos, and then sorry, forgot to do spread here. So to do, and then add the new to do. There we go. So to remove it, we are simply going to do state.todos.remove, and for that we actually just need the index. So I'm just going to change the parameter here and type it index for now. Remove at, there we go, index. And then let's see what it returns. It returns a to do, and this should work. If it doesn't work, we'll work on it. Let's see. Now what we need to do is we need to create the screen, right? So let's go to our screens and let's create a new file here, and then we are going to rename it to, we are going to name it to to-do list.screen.dart. We are going to create a basic stateless widget, and we are going to call it class to-do list screen extends stateless widget. We're going to add the build method, and then we are going to return a scaffold, and then with app bar title text to do list synchronous sync. Let's add synchronous there as well. So this is going to be our synchronous state management system, isn't it? So let's do the body. Body is going to be a column, or maybe we can actually do a list view. Actually, list view. I'm just going to create a view here. It's not going to be any, it's just going to be a simple view. So I'm just going to do that. To do list screen. Let's add super function there. Super.key. Yeah, that's that. Now list view needs a children, and we are going to display it here. Now let's call this in our main widget, and let's do to-do list, and then let's remove this from here. To-do list screen. Let's get rid of these imports. Now that we have our screen set up here, I'm gonna delete the home screen because we don't need that. Or maybe just keep it that. We can actually modify this later on. I'll show you that as well. Maybe let's see what happens. Now let's go to our to-do list screen, and let's incorporate our notifier in the screen. As you can see here, we define our notifier. Now we have to put it in our screen. So that's what we are going to do now. So to do that, we are going to replace the stateless widget with consumer widget. Consumer widget is going to come from import. I don't know why my autocomplete is not working, but it's alright. It's gonna come from Flutter Riverpod. Yeah, Flutter Riverpod. Yeah, that's where it comes from. So now as soon as we extend consumer widget, our build function is going to change, and our build function will have a new parameter of widget ref, and this is where we can access the state. Now this is how we do it. Now to access the state data, right, this state here, this value that we return from the build, we can simply write final state is going to be ref.watch. This is going to trigger the rebuild. So we are going to call the name of this to-do list notifier. Since we are using Riverpod generator, every name is going to get transformed into to-do list notifier provider. The provider is going to get added to the name of the class. So we are going to have to call it here. So let's do to-do list notifier provider. There you go. We have got the autocomplete there. It's also lowercase letter here, as you must have noticed. So this is what the generator generates for us to use. So this is how we get the state. Now let's simply do state.todos.forEach, or we can do map to do item. Let's do item return list title text item dot title. As simple as that. And we also have to convert this to list, and maybe we can just simply change this to that. Now we get an error saying that we have no provider scope. This error is actually very simple. It clearly says that we don't have any provider scope found. So to fix this issue, we just go to our main function, and as you can see, it's already giving a squiggly line here, and it's saying that the provider scope is missing, as you can see here. So we just have to quick fix it and then wrap it with provider scope. That's all we need to do. So this is how the provider gets injected into our app. Provider scope child my app. So that's what we need to do. Let's save that. Now let's close the framework and let's just refresh it. Now it should work. As we refreshed it, as you can see, to-do list sync is here on the top, and since we don't have any item, it's showing up there. We can also have it be like that. To-do.list.if it's empty is empty, then we can actually simply load the center child text list is empty. Let's save that, and as you can see, the list is empty is here. Now let's add a floating action button here, and let's floating action button on pressed. We are going to give it a blank function for now, and we're going to give it a child of icons dot add. Let's save that. Now we see that there is a button here. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller so that you can see everything. Okay, so we've got the button here, and currently it does nothing. So we are going to call our function that we created in our notifier. So how do we do that? How do we call add and remove? And there is another way to do that now. We cannot directly access it from here. This is just to access the state property. Now to call the notifier functions, we have to call it this way. So we are going to declare a variable called state notifier is going to be ref.read this time, because we just want to read and we want to dispose it immediately if nothing is watching it. So this function, we'll understand this when we create a service function later on, but for now let's just know that we have to call read in order to call the function that we have given to our notifiers. So let's go and let's just do that. And to do that, we are going to have to-do list notifier provider dot notifier. That's what we need to do, and then we can actually call state notifier dot add function. Now since add function requires a title and we have to create a form for that, I'm just going to use a simpler approach for now. Now I'm going to use a faker package, so let's install that. I'm going to add a dependency faker. Yeah, for now I'm just going to use faker. I'm not going to create the forms. Now let's close that, and now let's go to this. Let's save that. We are going to go to the notifier, and instead of this, we are going to have final title is going to be faker dot lorem. There should be something called lorem. yeah, lorem dot sentence. There we go. So we're going to create a sentence and we're going to add it to the list. Now let's see if this works. You're going to have to put this child down there. Yeah, should be working. Let's see. Add, there we go. As you can see, our state is working. This is a synchronous state, so there's no loading indicator. As you can see, our state property is getting updated by add method. Now that we have added our to-do list, added item to our to-do list, we are going to remove it as well. So we are going to go to our to-do list screen and we are going to create a dismissible widget on top of the list tile. So it's going to have a dismissible. And we need to provide a key to the dismissible, so we are going to just provide it with key item dot title. Let's save that. And we are also going to have to, as you can see, as soon as we swipe it on the left, it just disappears. We don't want that actually. We are going to add confirm dismiss, and we are going to return future dot value false. And we also have to give a direction. We're not going to use that, but we're just going to keep it there. A dismissible widget is part of a tree. Make sure to implement on dismissed handler to immediately remove. Let's just reload that. We're going to reload that again to make sure that we don't have any errors. So as you can see, it's working and there's no warnings here or errors. So now if we try to add, we can easily create to-do items. Now let's just swipe it. It's not gonna delete. As you can see, it's not gonna get deleted, as you can see, because of this. So we are gonna call our state notifier here dot remove, and we are gonna pass the index. Since the map is not going to have index, we have to create a way to add index. So instead of using our state map to do like this, we can actually add a list view dot builder. Actually, item count is going to be state to-dos dot length, and then item builder is going to have a context and index. So that's how we can get the index. So we're just going to return the entire thing from here, and final item is going to be state dot to-dos index. So now we can get rid of this children. Yeah, let's save that, and we have to give a semicolon here. Now we can remove it, and since it's an asynchronous, we just have to actually we don't have to do that. We can just simply remove it because it's synchronous, right? I just forgot for a while there. Yeah, it's not a future, so it's a synchronous state that we are managing using our notifier. So now if I close this, now it should remove. Unsupported operation cannot remove from an unmodifiable list. Okay, so let's update this. So we cannot do that, it's saying. So we are going to actually use another technique. We should not actually directly modify the state, because we have to do the copy with function, isn't it? That's the reason it's complaining that. So we have to do it this way. So we are going to do final modified state, modified to-dos is going to be, let's do state dot to-dos, and let's spread it to remove the reference. Now we can do modified to-dos dot remove at index, and then we can simply do state is equal to state dot copy with to-dos is going to be modified to-dos. Now I think it should not show any errors. Let's refresh that again, and let's add new to-dos. Let's swipe that, and as you can see, it's gone. Let's swipe that, it's gone. Swipe that, it's gone. So our synchronous state is complete. Sorry, it's gonna have to open that. Yeah, so that's what we did. We defined a state. We defined a state here, and we added a part keyword here with the file that the generator created for us. We learned how to use freeze. And since this is not a tutorial of freeze or any other things, I'm not going to go into detail. I just want to show you how to implement Riverpod directly without explaining too much. Maybe in the next videos I'll explain in detail. But yeah, we defined a state, a synchronous state that we added to our notifier. So this is the state that we added to our notifier here. the build function returns the to-do list, and this is what determines the state for this notifier. Now this notifier can be used in any screens, the same way we used in to-do list, by creating a consumer widget and then extending this build to have one more parameter of widget ref, and then we can access the state like this, and we can access the notifier methods using the read and dot notifier here. So that's all there is to it. So we learned how to create a synchronous state notifier, and we implemented it in our screen, and it works great, as you can see here. Now let's create an asynchronous notifier so that we can manage an asynchronous state. So let's do that. It's going to be a little bit different, so most of the things will be the same. So we are going to go back to our services this time. We are going to create a new file, and we're going to create a to-do list.service dot. Now here we are going to create a class, and we're going to name it to-do list service. Let's do it to-do list mock service, because this is what we are going to get from the API, service. But for now, I'm just going to use future awaits to mimic the asynchronicity. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. So here we are going to define the list of to-dos, and then it's going to be the list, and the list is going to be empty initially. Now we are going to have a property called get future list of to-do get, and the get method is gonna return, it's gonna be asynchronous, so async there. So we're gonna await future dot delayed const duration of seconds 1. I'm gonna add 1 second delay, and then I'm gonna return the list. Very simple. We are also going to implement the add, and we are going to implement the remove, just to make it simple. So to add, we are going to use the same logic as we did here in our model. Sorry, in our notifier, I mean to say. So I'm just going to grab these 2 lines of code just to make things easier. So I'm going to just paste it here, and to add it, we are going to use faker again. We are going to create, and then let me press command dot to import faker. Save that. New to-do list is new to-do list, and then we're going to return. We're not going to return, we are going to set list to that. So list is list dot. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, since this is a API service that we are mocking, isn't it? So let's do that. So we have added new to do. Yeah, that should work. Now removing it should be also the same thing. In remove, we'll expect an integer of index, and then it's going to have to just remove the list dot remove at index. Should work this time around. Yeah, so now this time around this should work straightforward. So now there's one more thing we want to do. As we know that we have to create singleton for services or a factory constructor so that it disposes automatically, but Riverpod provides it its own way. So as we know that we have to create a singleton, or we usually create a singleton for this kind of classes, but in Riverpod they provide another way to handle service files, and the way to do that is by simply calling a function which returns this to-do list mock service, and the name of this service is going to be to-do list service, and then it's going to return to-do list service like this. We are going to indicate it with Riverpod. The reason we are doing this is because it's going to create an auto disposable provider, so it's going to handle creating and disposing for us. That's why we are doing this. So if you have used getit or any other dependency injection before, then you already know that we have to create a lazy singleton or a factory constructor for a class. So we don't have to do that using Riverpod. Using Riverpod, this is how you define a service that will be a singleton and it will get auto disposed once it's finished once there's nothing referencing it. Anyways, let's continue with that. So every time we create a service file and create a provider for that, we also have to pass in ref, and this ref is going to come from Riverpod itself. There we go. Now again, please remember that every time we create a decorator from Riverpod, we have to create a part condition on the top. So to-do list dot service dot dart, we have to indicate G there. So to-do list service. Yeah, so let's save that and let's run the dot build runner build dash D. We're gonna wait for it. Riverpod, what's going on? Very strange. The notation was not there. That's the reason. The import was not there. Sorry. Let's run that again. Just confused me for a while there. Anyways, now it's gonna work. Let's wait for that to complete. There we go. Now it's working. Gave me a panic attack there for a while. Anyways, let's now we can call this anywhere we want. We are going to learn how we are going to use this. For now, we are just going to go to our to-do list screen and we're going to duplicate this screen, copy and paste, and we are going to name it to-do list async, and then we're going to name this to-do list async. We are going to go back to our to-do list, and then we are going to add action here so that we can navigate to that screen, and then we are going to call material navigator dot push material page route builder, and then we're going to return to-do list async screen. Save that. Wait, I forgot to do icon text button on pressed. Yeah, here we are going to call that, and we're going to give it a text of async to do. Save that. Now it should appear here on the top. Wow, I don't believe this is happening. Okay, so on pressed, yeah, now it's working. Okay, so async to do the buttons here. If you click on that, we are going to go to our to do sync list. No, it's going to be to do async list. ASYNC async list. Let's save that. Now this is the async list, this is the synchronous list. Let's implement this now. Now that we have created our screen for our async to the list, we are going to modify it. So let's go to our controller, and then we're gonna duplicate this to do list notifier and then rename it to be to do list async notifier. So we're gonna handle asynchronous task here. So as you can see, as soon as we do that, it's gonna complain, and I'm gonna rename this to be async. I'm gonna rename this as well to be to do list async notifier. There we go. Now let's build it, and we're gonna see the difference. What do we need to do in order to create this notifier to handle asynchronous tasks or asynchronous state? So let's wait for that. There we go. As you can see, by default there is no errors. The only thing we have to change to call it, to make it an asynchronous state manager, is that we have to give it future value here. Let's just do future or to-do list, and then it's going to return a build. Now we cannot directly return this here since it's an asynchronous function. We have to await. Let's await for future dot delayed, or since we already have actually, we can actually let me just return this here for now, and then we don't need that semicolon. What is it saying? Future to-do list isn't a valid auto display notify build function. Okay, so await and wait, why is he saying that? Member being overwritten. Okay, no, don't worry about that. We are going to have to actually run the build runner again because we changed the type, isn't it? That's why it's complaining there. So let's run the build runner. Now it's created the correct asynchronous state manager, state notifier, let's just say, it's a asynchronous state that we are managing in this file. That's why it's complaining about all of these. So we're just gonna comment these out. Now I'm gonna close my sidebar and I'm gonna open my service file, which we created a while back, isn't it? So yeah, so as you can see, we created this. We are going to use this service file inside our asynchronous notifier, and the way we do this is by creating a final variable, or final, let's do to-do list service, isn't it? To-do list mock service, and let's do a get, and let's do to-do service, and this is going to return ref. So every time we are calling a provider, we have to call ref, and this ref will be available to us after we run our run our function. So we are going to read, because we are going to read, process information, and dispose it immediately. So if you go and look at this here, not this, if you go and look at the service file here, and then open up the generated file, you can see that it's an auto disposable provider. That means it gets disposed as soon as we are finished with it, finished with the task or the function that we have used. So we're going to close that, and we will see that in action too. So if we, so now let's do now remember that provider is the name of the provider we need here. The name of the provider we need here is always going to be the one that we have indicated with this decorator riverpod tag. So this name, when we indicate any function or class with at riverpod, this will change to riverpod service provider. Yeah. Okay. This will be inside the generated file. So that's what we need to do here. We need to call to do list service provider. There we go. The autocomplete is already available there. Now it's going to complain that can't have a final property here. So we cannot define any properties inside our notifier. That's the reason we created our state in a different file. That's why I wrote final here, because you might be thinking, why did we even create a type? Why couldn't we just simply write to-do list here itself? This is not possible. We can't declare any variables here. So we are going to remove this. We are going to do get to do service, and then we are going to get the value. There's another thing we have to note. I'll come back to that in a while. First of all, let's run the generator function again this time, just to make sure that everything is wired up properly. There's one more thing we want to do here, and that's going to be, let's change the screen, or I don't know why it's not showing the error message, but let's just leave that to that for now. So if we call this here try catch error, and let's just print the error, we are going to use the same here, but let's just do to do service dot add, and we're going to await that there. This is going to be async. This is going to be future. So we are handling all the asynchronous processes here. We're going to copy the same thing here, and then we are going to modify here too, async future. So we converted the synchronous state management notifier to an asynchronous state management notifier. So that's why I did it at the same time. So now you can see the difference. As you can see, we need this as well sometimes. For example, form state management. If you want to use that, sometimes it's better to use this. But to be honest, using hooks can be a better choice, but it can make things complicated. So I'm not going to jump into that right now. I'm just going to show you how to use Riverpod. In the future videos, I'm going to show you how to handle forms as well. In a project where we are using Riverpod, I'll show you how to manage forms as well, but that will come in my later videos. But for now, let's just go to our file here. Now let's go to add. It's returning our to-do list. So we are going to be ready to go here. So we are going to go and declare a variable called result, and result is going to be our list of to-dos, isn't it? So So this time around, we are going to set the value. But before doing that, I just realized that I've not done anything with the build method. So we are going to copy the entire thing again, paste it here, and we're going to write get, because we have to get the data as well this time. It's not going to be locally available, right? So we are going to get the list, and the list, we will set it. We'll just return it actually this time. Return the result. The reason we are returning the result, and let's return null. No, let's return empty. Or maybe we can return null as well. Let's return empty, and let's just do to-do list here like so. Now we are going to have to return to-do list, and then the result should go here, and the same thing should happen here too, right? But this time here it's going to be empty. Now we are going to call the get method here like this. So this is how we are gonna call the asynchronous function. So as soon as we use this notifier in our screen, it automatically gets the data for us. So we don't have to. This is like init state. If you come from a provider background, then this is the init state. It's kind of like the init state for us. Yeah, so now we have done the get part, we have done the add part. Add is there, and then the remove is there. So now let's connect this to the well, we can load the data, but for now I want to show you how we can actually update the asynchronous state data in our notifier. This is going to be slightly different than usual. So when the data comes here, when we add and we get the value from the API, we're gonna get this, right? So we cannot set it like the way we did it before. It's not gonna work. This time around we have to do set is equals to async data, and here we can do state dot value this time, and then the value is going to be there dot copy with, and here we can set the value here, the result. There we go. So we have to use async data and then pass in the state value here in order for us to update the data. And we are going to do the same thing here. We're going to copy this, and I'm just going to copy this here. Final result is await remove. Yeah, that's it. So this is how we're going to update the data. Now let's integrate this asynchronous state notifier to our screen. So we are going to go to our to-do list async screen. For now, I'm just going to close this. I'm going to close the model file. I'm going to close the main file. To-do list notifier file. I'm just going to leave these for now. So these are the files we need to handle asynchronous state. We are going to create the notifier. We'll have the screen obviously, and then we'll have the service file initialized by the Riverpod package. So now you'll understand why we did this as well in a while now. So let's go back to our screen, and then we're going to change this to to-do list async notifier provider. Copy and paste that. So we are using asynchronous notifiers now. As soon as we do that, we'll get an error, and this time it's saying that it can't find state.todos because state.value.todo is the right way to extract the data here. Now it's gonna complain that null check operator used on null value, because initially it's gonna be loading, right? Because as soon as the build function gets called, it's gonna load asynchronously. That's why we have to do state.isLoading. If it's loading, then we are going to do center child circular progress indicator, and then we are going to do that. Let's refresh it. Now it's showing list here. Now let's go to asynchronous state, and it's loading, and then it shows list is empty. There we go. So it took 1 second, as we have said it here. Get 1 second delayed, right? Now the list is empty, and this is asynchronous state, right? So now if we try to add, let's see what happens. Let's see if we add, then we see that item is here because we connected it, but there is no loading indicator whatsoever. Even though the state is loading, we don't see anything here. But we have not even done anything regarding the isLoading property. We didn't even create an isLoading in to-do list. Now that's the good side about Riverpod, and that is that it provides us with the error handling and loading handling from the generator itself. So the way we access it is by setting state is async loading. That's how we access it. We can do const, and this is gonna indicate that the state is loading, and it automatically sorts down the isLoading state when the data is available. So we don't have to do it here because it already does that for us in the build function, but we have to do this in our add function. Now that we have added this, now if we press add, it's going to load and then it's going to add, as you can see. But did you notice something weird? Every time I add, it loads and gets the new data rather than adding it on top of whatever previously was there. Now this is a very interesting thing. As you can see, it is working and it is changing the text, but it's not adding on the same. That's happening because we created a service file with Riverpod, and it created let's go and let's see in the generator file, it created an auto disposable provider. So every time we call add, it creates this service file, it accesses this get method, and then as soon as we finish with this function, it disposes it, clearing up the memory usage. So it's a very good feature. But since we are adding the state in here directly, since it's a mock service, that's why it's actually discarding the list, and that's the reason it's empty here. To fix that, we can use this Riverpod keepAlive true. If we do that and we generate the file again, now we are going to keep it alive. Once it's created, it's going to be a lazy singleton now. Now if we create to-do list mock service, it's going to just stay there in the memory. So sometimes you might want to use this, like for example here, I want to use it here, isn't it? So let's do that now. Let's do add, and there we go, and then let's do it one more time. Now we have to refresh it, I believe. Let's refresh that. Let's go to async to do. Let's click on add. Let's click on add. There we go. Let's click on add, and there we go. We have got 3 now because of this. Now it's a singleton now. Before it used to dispose, now it's not going to dispose, it's going to keep alive. So that's what I wanted to show. One more thing I want to show is that if we go back to our notifier, asynchronous notifier, we declared a variable here on the top, but it's giving us a squiggly line here. The reason is because notifiers should not have public properties, getters or setters. So notifiers should never have a property here. That's why we defined a state in this way. So to fix that, we just have to make it private. That's all. Now let's just rename there, just create a private file, and that'll be fixed. So every time we use a service file, we do it this way, and we can add more services files so that it becomes a lot easier to manage. That's why I've done it this way, rather than calling ref.read in every place in the file. Now let's complete the remove functionality as well. So now currently, if you just try to remove it, it's not going to remove it, isn't it? It's going to remove it from there, but that's not working, I believe. Is it working? I think it's working, but it's not showing the loading indicator. Yeah, it is working. Okay, so the thing is happening is that if you do that, it stays there, now it disappears, isn't it? Because it took 1 second to remove it. That's why it disappeared after a while. So to fix that, we are just going to create a loading state again here, and then save that. And now we don't have to refresh it. So if we add, and then I'm going to clean it up, and then it's going to load, and it's going to show up here. Now that is a little bit very difficult to see. That's why I'm gonna have to add the loading indicator somewhere here. Wait a minute. I'm gonna use a column widget, and then expanded. Yeah, and then I'm gonna use a loading indicator this way, I believe. I don't know how it's gonna be for now. I don't even think we need the center, but let's keep it that way. Let's just do on not, and then it's gonna load there. Let's use save area widget, save area. It's gonna bring it on the top. Now it looks better, isn't it? So let's close that. Now let's add button, and then it's gonna load and it's gonna add. It's gonna load and it's gonna add. Let's delete that. It's gonna load and it's gonna delete. Great. The UI is not great, I know that, but that's not the purpose, isn't it? We know how to use the notifier now and how to manage state. We're using Riverpod, so that's great. As you can see, we can add, we can remove synchronous data, and we can do the asynchronous data too. Now there's a problem. We see that there is no value, so we have to wait for this. So if that's not there, we can do if state.value is null, then we want to use the same thing here, center and load. Let's reload the app again. Let's go to async to do, and then it's gonna load. Let's click on the plus button and it's gonna add. Let's click on the plus button and it's gonna add, and it looks really nice now. So that's complete. Working with asynchronous data, we need to handle error as well, and Riverpod provides us a way to handle error data like the way it provides us with asynchronous offloading state. So what we need to do now is we have to go to this section here, and we just have to call state is equals to async error, and in this error we are going to simply pass in the error actually, and here we are going to do stack trace.current. That's it. So we're going to copy that and paste it here too. We're gonna do the same here. Yeah, so async error stack trace.current. We're gonna test this out too in a while. We're gonna go back to our screen, and here state value, here we are going to have another property. If its value is null, then center loading, and if it has, I'm just gonna write center, just gonna copy this, actually this one here, actually copy this. I know the UI is a little bit messy, but that's not the point. We're just gonna load state.error.toString. State.hasError. As you can see, it provides Riverpod provides us with everything that we need to handle asynchronous data. So if the value is null, that means it's loading, so show the loading indicator. If the state has error, then show the error message, otherwise show the data. So now we can confidently use the exclamation mark here like the way we've used here before. So now let's go to the notifier, and then I'm going to throw an error here. Throw an error here. Oh no, something went wrong. Let's just do that. Oh yeah, oh no, something went wrong. Yeah, so let's go to asynchronous. We already there. Now let's press plus, boom. Oh no, something went wrong, came up. We can also do color style, no wait, style text style colors.red. There we go. Oh no, something went wrong as soon as we got the error, isn't it? So let's remove that, let's save it, and let's press plus again, and now we're gonna get the data loading and the data gets added. Now sometimes what happens is when we are updating state like this, our previous state gets lost sometimes. When that happens, I'm not going to go into too much detail right now. When you are working with asynchronous state, and if you encounter this issue where the state that previously was there, now it's not there after updating the state, then you can use this technique where you can just copy with previous and pass in the state value. This is going to make sure that the state is preserved. But we also have to remove the const and give it a type, and the type is going to be the same type that we declared here, like so. So we can do this too. Only use this when you see that the state has disappeared after updating the state in this way. You will encounter this and you'll understand even more how this happens and why this happens. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Like I said previously, this tutorial should be very straightforward, how to implement Riverpod in your Flutter project. So we have completed everything, I think. Yeah, we have completed everything. If you want to go, if we revise, we can see that we first created our core and UI folder. UI is where all of our widgets are stored. Core is where we store all of our logic. So we created a screen for the synchronous to-do list. We created a controller here, and now you can compare between these two to identify what's the difference between asynchronous state management and synchronous state management. So that'll be all for this tutorial. If you have any confusions, if you don't understand anything, or if you have a better approach than this, then please leave it in the comment. I'll see you in the next video.